Morgan. To everyone, happy Monday. This is the Light Gate. We are coming to you from the beautiful city of New Orleans in Louisiana at the United Public Radio Network at 107.7 FM and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network at 105.3 FM. We are on Facebook, Roku, and YouTube. We are worldwide, and we are so excited tonight. We have a wonderful guest. It's the first time on our show, and I am very excited. So here we go. Preston, take it.
Thank you, Dolly. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight on episode 65 of The Light Gate. We have an amazing guest. Been following his research forever since I got involved in this field. He's been around in this field for many decades, and so excited to speak with him tonight. Of course, I am your host, Preston Dennett, and my lovely co-host is Dolly Safran. Our guest tonight, as we'll see shortly, is Grant Cameron. But let me just say a quick, and I promise to be quick, Dolly, quick hi to all you folks here in chat. Thank you so much for joining us each week. We're having loads of fun with you guys. Get your questions in early if you want them answered. In caps is better. But let's see, who do we got here today? We have Sukhoi and Scuba Maru and Louise. Awesome. You guys are our regulars, so thank you so much. Hi, John Schaefers and Rusty Grunert. Janice Connett, looking forward to this. Yes, me too. We have Blind Psychonaut, good evening. And Namaste with his endless generosity. Thank you so much, Namaste. Can't thank you enough. You are simply the best. Thank you. Rat food. Hello. Who else do we have here? Arthur. This should be epic. Yes, I think so. Probably going to have to bring Grant back. I'm saying it already, but he has 15, 20 books, something like that. Who else is here? Peak and Fun Talks TV and Sonny Burnett and Arthur. And oh, look at this, Sukhoi. Thank you so much. You guys, this means a lot. Sukhoi, thank you. Really helps us to put the best show out possible. So thank you so much. Arthur, check. 1, 2, 3, check. Thank you for joining us. Susan Lawrence and Bob. Hope you're doing well. Thank you very much for the donation. Again, it means a lot. It's truly appreciated. So thank you. Moonfire, hello. Mark's Shed Talk, all the way from Brisbane, Australia. Who else we got? We have Olivia and Wes Decker. And look, Sandra. Hey, Sandra. Hope you're doing well. And Renee with lots of...
Hello, Renee.
Thank you so much. JB Rants, doing my best to join the community. Oh, there's the best. I knew I saw it. Sector 31, hello, and Brenda Whelan, and I'm getting to it, Dolly, I promise. Becky Duncan and Lars, and Bronk Lander RC. Thank you for the love, Bronk. It truly is appreciated. You guys are so awesome. And I want to give another thank you to Sonny Burnett. So thank you. You guys are amazing. Star Orchid, love your guests, love your show, love you both. We love you too. We're really having a lot of fun with the show, and you guys are come to be our dear friends. So please know that we love you very much. Hi, Jay. Who else we got here? John Schaefer's waiting. Sky Scanner. Luis Suarez. All right, I've got to get done before 15 minutes are up, so I'm just gonna start right now before I get in trouble. Rhythm Richard, all the way from New Zealand. Had to squeeze one more in there, Dolly. Okay, let me see. I've got our guest's bio. Yes, today our guest, of course, is Grant Cameron, pioneering researcher. He's been in this field a very long time. He's doing some excellent research. He's a man after my own heart with so many excellent books on very specific subjects that are really important to this field. And let me see, what do we have here? Grant is the recipient of the Leeds Conference International Researcher of the Year and the UFO Congress Researcher of the Year. So he's an award-winning ufologist. He became involved in ufology in May of 1975, the end of the Vietnam War. Wow.
50 years. Wow.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And has had personal sightings of a UFO-type object, which locally became known as Charlie Red Star. We're going to be talking about that. He wrote a book called Tales of Charlie Red Star. And it was these sightings that led to a decade of research into the early work done by the Canadian government into the flying saucer phenomena. Grant became the authority on the program, and Wilbert B. Smith, who headed it up. I think that's Project Magnet, if I'm correct. But from here, Cameron proceeded to do almost 3 decades of research into the role of the President of the United States in the UFO mystery. He's written some books on that. He's one of the foremost authorities on Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump and their UFO connection, Carter as well. You can find more information on that on his website, President's UFO website. It's actually, well, you can see it in the show notes, presidentialufo.com. And he's written the Clinton UFO Storybook and also Managing Magic, the government's UFO disclosure plan, which I believe has a sequel. And he experienced, this is interesting, a mental download event on February 26, 2012, and turned his research interests away from nuts and bolts into the role of consciousness in the UFO phenomena, which happens, I think, to all researchers who continue in this field. At some point, they start to realize there's a very strong spiritual and psychic aspect to all of this. And this new research is expanded out into the possible involvement of extraterrestrials in modern music. Ooh, I do want to hear about that. I know ETs love musicians. So many of them have encounters. And in the aspects of inspirations and downloads and science discoveries, inventions, Nobel Prizes, music, art, books, near-death experiences, meditation, and with individuals known as savants and prodigies. Quite a few prodigies in the contactee community. So Grant has lectured widely in Canada, the US, Europe. He was one of 40 witnesses, this is amazing, that testified in front of 6 ex-senators and congressmen in Washington for the Citizens Hearing on Disclosure. He has, of course, no surprise here, appeared on many television documentaries on UFOs and has been interviewed by nearly 100 radio shows, including a series of appearances on the big one, Coast to Coast AM, and now 101 with our show. Let's see, Cameron co-authored a book on government UFO cover-up called UFOs Area 51 and the Government. He did a book called Alien Bedtime Stories, which is on my shelf back there. I highly recommend it. It contains 72 articles on UFOs as they relate to presidents, consciousness, abductions, and musicians. He has 3 other books related to consciousness called Inspired, The Paranormal World of Creativity, Tuned In, The Creative World of Music, and Managing Magic, the government's UFO disclosure plan. There are many other books. I think it's 16 at last count. Grant can correct me, but I think that's enough. There are links in the description. And you can click on those, hopefully after the show, not during it. But let's bring Cameron in and get this show on the road.
Hi, Cameron. Welcome.
Hey, am I famous yet?
Yes. Absolutely.
Thanks a lot. One little correction. The presidential website I actually took down a few years ago because I didn't have a 14-year-old kid to run it. I had a guy put a very complex website up with all the bells and the whistles and stuff, and then he had some personal problems and he packed it in, and I was left with this site that I had no clue how to run. So I took it down. I have a White House UFO blog site where I put some articles on, and I'm on Twitter and Facebook, but I really don't have a website anymore. Basically I'm sort of a techno crazy, don't understand any of that stuff. So, but I do a lot of writing and a lot of talking, as you'll find out.
Very cool. Yeah. Well, as I said, I've been following you for a very long time. We're very helpful pointing out Chris Bledsoe's healing cases when I was doing research into UFO healings. So thank you for that. That was awesome. And yeah, well, I usually like to start the show asking everyone, when they were growing up, how did you feel about UFOs? Were you skeptical? Did you have encounters? I saw in your bio how you became involved in this field, but I'm wondering, as a kid, what were your thoughts on UFOs and the paranormal?
Absolutely none. That's the key to my whole story is I had no interest. I cannot think of even having thought about it one time in my life. I was raised very religious, which is part of the thing. I was supposed to be a minister. So I have a background in the spirituality type stuff. And the other thing was I was kind of interested, I think before I had my sighting, in Edgar Cayce. The only reason I got involved with UFOs was, and now looking back, I'm almost 100% sure that this was all planned. It was all intended. There was a set of sightings started in February of 1975. Small town called Carmen, Manitoba, I live in Winnipeg, Manitoba, which is just north of North Dakota. It's famously the one city in Canada that nobody wants to visit. It's the coldest major city in the world. And these sightings started about 35 miles at a town called Carmen, 35 miles southwest of the town. And I said to my friend, who is actually struggling for his life now in the hospital, I said to him, I said, come on, Larry, they're seeing this thing there every night. They say this thing's there every night. Let's go see what they're looking at. And he said, yeah, okay, we'll go. Because we used to drive around the city and we didn't do anything. We just drive around. And so we never went because neither of us had any interest in it. And so then in May of 75, I'm about to do an interview with Britt Elders and the whole Meyer thing. We had a situation, if you know the Reynolds from Forest story about the UFO going from 80,000 feet down to sea level in 7/8 of a second. We had exactly the same thing happen here in Manitoba in 1975, in May of 1975. It went from the ground to 5,000 feet in the air in 3 frames. So 1/8 of a second.
Wow.
It jumped, and it was caught on film. So anyway, in May of 1975, the local TV station had gotten this thing on film and jumping off the ground, and there's what's called a flash frame. So in the Meyer videos, there's a flash frame. So I always knew Billy Meyer was the real deal because I knew this flash frame existed. When they described this, I said, that's exactly what happened in Carmen. It was the same thing, except it happened at night and the whole horizon lit up. One frame, the entire horizon lit up. So the local TV station ran this video, and they went frame by frame, and it had 5 or 6 echoes in the back, and it was moving up and down. It was pulsing, and they had it like frame by frame, and they made this like an 8-minute documentary on these 12 seconds or 12 inches of film that they captured that night. And then I said to my friend, come on, let's go see what they're looking at. And so we went out there, and I always describe it as, you buy the lottery ticket, there's a chance you can win, but you're not going to win. You're not going to win. Maybe you're going to see, but no, everybody else will see it. We're not going to see anything. We went out there, we drove into town, out of the town. I had no background in astronomy or anything. And so we're sort of looking around. There's 3 of us. We're kind of like, well, what are they looking at? Like, what's the big deal about? And we saw stars and planets and whatever. And we're looking around, and nothing happened. We were in there for an hour. My friend says, okay, we'll drive back into town one more time. If we don't see anything, let's go home. I said, fantastic. This has been a total waste of time. We turned the car to go back in, and it appeared from the left to the right, and nobody in the car, this is important, nobody in the car said, is that what they're looking at? I wonder if that's what everybody's looking at. Everybody's like, there it is. It's like, oh. And it was right in front of the car. It flew right in front of the car about maybe 30 miles an hour. It was in close enough. Looking back now, it was in close enough that they wanted to be absolutely sure that Grant Cameron would never, ever question what he had seen. It was like the star planet, nothing. This was in really close.
What did it look like?
Down. It was like it was alive. It was red. It was pulsing. It was alive. And I went, oh, it's like miracles happen. It's like there are actually miracles. And it flew across. And I remember it was really low in front of the car, just above the road. And then it was going in behind these school buses. And I remember the car was still moving. I was getting out of the car. It was still moving because I wanted to go through the ditch to get across this parking lot because I knew it was going to get in behind the school buses and I wanted to see it. And then it just sort of just pulsed and it just sort of flew away. Dragged all my friends out. 2 nights later, I said, come on, you got to see this. This is the most amazing thing you ever see in your life. And I dragged all my friends out there. And about an hour later, they said, we're hungry. We're going back to Winnipeg. I said, no, you got to see this. This will change your life, man. This is the most amazing thing. No, we're going back. We're hungry. We're going back to Winnipeg for pizza. And they all took off. And I remember there was 8 or 9 people still left. There was 2 cars, our car, and there was another car. There was a courier car. There was 3 guys and a girl in that car. So the second night, these kids are sitting in the field, and they're sort of like kids, 14 years old or whatever, my friends' brothers. And they're sitting in the field, and all of a sudden there's this flash on the horizon. And they said, "Is that it?" I go, "I guess so." It didn't look like it flashed. And then it was called what they called the bouncing ping pong ball, where it goes boom, 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 jumping around the sky. And it was just like pandemonium. People yelling, swearing, screaming, as like a football game. And the guy had a Nikon camera with a motor drive on it. And I still remember all this yelling and screaming. And there was a girl in the car. There's 3 guys and a girl. The girl couldn't see it. She's crying. "I can't see it. I can't see it. Someone show me where it is." And people, "Oh!" And this guy, the camera, I could hear the camera go click, zzz, click, zzz, click. And he just literally unloading the camera as this thing was. And it flew right at us, came in really close. And then it sort of made this turn. And it sort of flew back where it came from. And I remember looking at it as it was flying away. And this is important. It was flying away. And I said, "Wow." I mean, I felt like I was like in the Bible, like this is miracles. Like, wow, I actually got this. Could actually be an extraterrestrial spacecraft. I'm looking at this and go, wow, I'm so lucky to have seen this. And then I'm looking at it and I'm going, but what's it doing? It's not doing anything. It was just flying along. And it was like, what's it doing in Carmen, Manitoba? And I remember I went back 35 years later to the guy who owned the airport, who was like the tour guide of all the people that were coming to the town trying to see stuff. And I said, "Bob," they said, why'd they come to Carmen? Like, why would they, what are they doing in Carmen? He said, "You know why they're here." I said, "Bob, no, there's 2,000 people. There's nothing here. There's nothing here. There's no industry. There's no military. There's nothing." And I said, I have no idea. He said, "I told you in 1975 why they were here." I said, "Bob, I don't know." 35 years later, I still don't know. He said, "I told you the missile silos. I told you the missile silos in North Dakota." And then suddenly we all knew, because we drive through North Dakota and we'd all see the missile silo. So every 10 miles you'd see in a field like the missile silo and the fence around it and stuff like that. And they're spread all over North Dakota. And we had just south of there. And he said, I told you I had that Air Force guy at the border. Went to the bar at the border, and this Air Force guy said they had one over top of a missile silo and that they were told to ram it. And he pulled out at the last second and decided he wasn't going to ram it. And the UFO went right up where this plane had pulled out of the formation. He said, "I told that story. You don't remember that story? I told you that story in 1975. So that's how I got sort of dragged into it. And it was because I was looking at this thing and I said, I don't know what's going on here. Like, I don't really know what this is, but somebody's got to know what's going on here. And then I started this lifelong pursuit to find the highest level person, the person with the most information, to tell me, why did that thing come to Carmen? What the heck's going on? And that's what I spent my whole life doing. I went to the Canadian government. Then I went to Dr. Eric Walker, who I think is still the highest level source that anybody ever had. This is a guy that was friends with Vannevar Bush, made security policy, defense policy with Vannevar Bush, was the co-developer of the homing torpedo during World War II, a very, very high level, 14 honorary doctorate degrees, chairman of the board of the top military think tank in the United States. And we went to him and we played games with him for about 6 or 7 years. He told us rhymes and riddles about what was going on and told us to, go do something else. And then I got on the president, because I figured, well, the president's the most powerful guy. He's got to know what's going on. And then when that all settled down, I went after Ron Pandolfi and Kit Green and all this high-level CIA people, what they knew and stuff like that, had interactions with these people. And then it basically came down to discovering the experiencers. And that's when I realized these are the people that are dealing with the intelligence. These are the people you need to listen to.
Right.
How old were you exactly? 75?
I was 21 at the time.
Oh, wow. It's very interesting, because that's when I got involved too.
Yeah, and I was going to university, and I didn't know I was sitting at university, and I'm saying, how do you make money from this garbage? It was like calculus with functions. And it's like, what the heck's a function? Like, how are you going to make money with this nonsense? I just couldn't figure it out. And as soon as the event happened, it was like, oh yeah, no, this made sense, And I would spend almost every second night out there. I went there numerous times. I had about 5 really close encounters with this object. And
with Charlie Red Star, you mean?
Yeah, with Charlie Red, and with the objects on the ground. Now they call them orbs, but at that time we called them ground lights. Orbs were not even in the vocabulary at that time. And I got close the first time these things were on the ground. I got to, it's a famous story I got with, it's April of 76. The big ones were flying over in 75. Then 76, these small things started to appear on the ground, and they were oranges. And I got close within about maybe, hard to estimate, 50 feet, 75 feet from this thing. And I live actually near another site, the Falcon Lake sighting. If you're familiar with the very famous Falcon Lake sighting where the guy gets burned very badly, that's on the other side of the city from me. It's east of my location here. So I knew that you could get burned. I knew you could get injured. But my friend was with me, and we had snuck up. We'd gone with the car, and the thing would go under this bridge. It was sitting on this bridge. And then we got on the bridge and we're going, it's got to be here. It's got to be under the bridge here. And so we're trying to look under the bridge, and there was snow and there was high water and stuff under the bridge. We couldn't really see it. And then we went down, heading towards the U.S. border. We turn around and this thing's back in the bridge. Hey, Jim, it's behind us. It's on the bridge. So we go back on the bridge again. We go directly north and we're on the bridge. And then we're going, for sure, this thing's gone. It's got to be under this bridge. And we're looking, couldn't find it. What are you going to do? So we're driving north away from the border, down this, what we call mile roads. Every mile there's a road. So we're driving down this road, and I get about a quarter mile down, and I look back. I said, Jim, it's back on the bridge again. Come on, let's go. Instead of taking the car, let's walk this time. And I had an 8mm movie camera. So I take 7 steps, then I take 3 seconds of film. 7 steps, 3 seconds of film. 7 steps, 3 seconds of film. And next thing you know, I'm like at the bottom of this bridge, this incline onto this wooden bridge that was sort of a drainage bridge. And I'm looking at this thing and I'm going, Jim, hold the camera. I'm going to jump on this thing. And I knew that you could get burned from this thing, but I was like the doubting Thomas. I had to touch it. And I figured I could run this thing before it could take off. I could hit it. I was going to try to slap this thing. And then he said, well, hang on. He said, I think there's one sitting on top of the car. And I said, what? What are you talking about? What? And I turned around and looking into the north, and it looked like the sun coming up in the north. So his car is like a quarter mile down north of the bridge. And on top of the car, it looked like the sun, orange, a half sphere, and this orange smoke hanging down the side of the car. And I'm going, there's one sitting on top of the car. And as we started to run, I took about 5 steps. And I went, oh yeah. And I turned around, sure enough, the one at the bridge is gone. And then I got back to the car, and I didn't know what to do. We figured, well, we're committed now. And then the thing went on the front hood. You could see it through the back and the front windshield, and it looked like the whole car was on fire inside. And then it went down, and there was water all over the field. So the water may have only been a couple inches deep on these fields, because it's the flattest area in the world, and it's completely flat, but the water's probably only a couple inches deep, and it must have gone down into the water or something. We got back to the car, and I don't know, this is my, what do I know? I'm putting my hand on top of the car. Was the car hot? I don't know what type of thing. And my friend, he told me later, he said he was looking for the keys to the car. He figured he's left the keys in the car, and he's checking to make sure the keys are there. And then I looked back, I said, hey, Jim, it's back at the bridge. Let's go again. Come on. I want to jump on this thing. And he said, no, I don't want to go. I said, come on, let's go. I want to get close. Nope. And it was his car, and he insisted. And then, so we had to leave, and we went, and the next night he was with his friends, and they're going down, and these roads are completely straight. So you can drive without your lights at 60 miles an hour down these roads. And they're chasing these things. They up and down these roads. These things
are these small orbs then that you're talking about?
It was about maybe the size of maybe a little bit bigger than a basketball. Brilliant. And the weird thing was, it was brilliant. It was so intense, you could really not look at it. It wouldn't hurt your eyes, but it was really intense. And it was this far away from the edge of the bridge. There was a wooden railing on the side of the bridge, and I still remember to this day. And this comes to when you start hearing other experiencers. It was sitting there, and I'm going, it's weird. Look at that light. That is so weird. It's lighting. It's so brilliant, but it's not lighting up the bridge. It was just like this small orange glow on the side of the bridge. I'm going, why is it? It should be lighting up the entire countryside. Why is it not lighting up the bridge? And then you hear this stuff inside the craft where people will describe the light, and the door is open into the next room, and the light doesn't go into the door. And we called it a dead light. And then you hear even like Mark Sims, if you know his story, the being comes to him in the room, and when he described it, he said, the weird thing was, I'm looking at this being, and it's intensely bright, but it's standing in front of the curtains in the hotel room, and it's not lighting up the curtains. I said, I know that. I know that thing. So anyway, we didn't go back to the bridge, and then I would take crews out there. I'd take people out there, and then I would say, that's a car. It's a car coming down the road. So not a car coming down the road. And they say, yeah, it's a car coming down the road. And I'd say, okay, how long do you think it's going to take to get here? Oh, 5 minutes. 5 minutes later. You still think it's a car? No, it's a farm light. And then we go through this whole circus every time. And then they would admit, no, it's not a farm light. We take them down the road and we show. And this thing would follow you down. You could push it down the road, turn around, and this thing would come follow you back down the road again. It was just the weirdest thing.
Playing with you.
Cameron, how many days in a row did this happen to you?
Oh, the thing with the lights went on for a whole year. They may still be there. I don't know. I just, at one point, I was taking crews out, and it would be the same circus every time. Let's go surround it. Let's come down the side road and come from behind it. I said, we tried that already. It doesn't work. You can't get close to this thing. And what we would do is flash lights at it. And then we would take infrared film. We had infrared film. We were shooting infrared film on this thing, and we'd force it to flare. It'd be like this triangle of lights, and you'd flash flashlights at it, and it would flare up, and then you take photographs. And so we took hundreds of photographs. And then at the end, I just said to people, they'd say, come, I'm going to go out. I got some more people that want to go out. And say, here's where you go. Go down Highway 3, go to 205, go down 2 miles, Second Mile Road, head for the United States border. Good luck. I'm not going. I'm tired of this, because it was sort of, I just sort of gave up, and it just wasn't getting anywhere. So that's when I sort of gave up the whole UFO thing. And then I really gave up the thing after I wrote the whole thing up. I wrote the manuscript up, and it was a pretty famous story here. I wrote it up, and I went to different publishers, and the local publisher, who should have published it because it was a famous story here, said, Mr. Cameron, you may believe in this kind of stuff. Count me among the unbelievers. I went, oh, this is a total waste of time. I said, this is insane. I'm not doing any more sightings. This is just stories. People don't care and stuff like that. And I parked the manuscript for maybe 30 years. And my sister came back 30 years later and said, oh, remember this? And she gave me the manuscript. And I went, wow, I don't even remember writing this thing. It was just weird. So I had sort of given up. And that's when I had a synchronistic event where my father was a pilot for the Canadian government. He worked for the Department of Transport, which is the same department that Wilbert Smith ran the UFO program out of, from 50 to 54. And there was this synchronicity. He said, oh, Ernie Epp, a guy in his office, Ernie Epp had a sighting. He wants to talk to you. And so I said, okay. So I go to this Ernie Epp guy, and I said, oh yeah, this sighting, it was just a light in the sky type thing, whatever. And then he said, at the end, he says, you know, you really want to know what's going on with UFOs, you should study what the Canadian government was doing in the 1950s. I said, oh, what do you mean? He said, well, I work for it. I said, you work? Because I'm 1,500 miles away from Ottawa, the capital. Like, it's on the other side of the country. I said, you worked for it? He said, yeah, there was only a couple of us here. I was an engineer. I changed the tapes in the Flying Saucer Observatory. I said, really? And he said, yeah, Wilbur Smith was the smartest engineer I ever met in my life. But he's totally crazy. He was talking to aliens that were landing in the backyard. And I said, they were what? I couldn't believe it. So I packed up, and I got contacted Wilbur Smith's wife, who was still alive. And I said, can I come to Ottawa and interview you? And I went there, and then we're driving to her son's place, James, who had hidden the files. Wilbur said, hide the files. They're going to try to get the files. So the Russians came, the Americans came, and the Canadians came, and they hid these files. They said they destroyed them. They're hiding at the son's house. So we go to the son's house, and Wilbur Smith's wife, Merle's, we're driving along. I got a rent-a-car. We're driving along. She's going, after this, after that. And it sounds she's talking about the family pet. Oh, Alpha, and we open the base for this thing to land. And Wilbur Smith said he could build a flying saucer, and it was on the Prime Minister's desk for 3 months. And then finally they decided, no, this is not the best time to do it. It was just like, it was like in a twilight zone listening to her talk. And she was just retiring. She told me this whole story, and it was just the most bizarre thing. And that's what dragged me into this whole thing. And I just went from one person to another person to another person. And it all just unfolded in front of me, the whole story.
So you had basically a 30-year space where you just kind of left the subject?
No, I was doing the Wilbur Smith stuff. The only time I left was about in early 1990s, when my son was growing up. He was playing hockey. He was a pretty good hockey player. So we were doing hockey almost every single day and stuff like that. And then I got dragged back in it because I live in the coldest major city in the world. And they had the conference at Laughlin, Nevada, in February. So that I go, oh, conference, 10 days long or 9 days, whatever it was, long conference. And I'm going like, I'm not much into the phenomena anymore, but man, it's like 40 below here. And it's like, it's like 20 degrees there. I said, well, I go to Laughlin, and I went in, and I got sucked back into the field. That's why I always make the joke. People say, oh, this guy quit. The guy quit. He's never coming back. I go, no, he's coming back. Nobody leaves. Once you're in, you don't come back. You always come back. You may leave for a while. So
is this your first book that got published then, Charlie Red Star?
No, actually we did the first book that MUFON ever published was UFOs Area 51. It used to be called UFOs MJ12 and the Government. That was the first book that MUFON published. And that was our interactions with Dr. Eric Walker. So we went after this guy for about 10 years. And then looking back after 10 years, it's all the stuff that he said made sense. At that time, nothing he said made sense. For example, part of the download I got in 2012 was one of the things he had said. He's being confronted by a guy interviewing him about a Great Britain. I didn't talk to him. I was sort of like the guy who sat in the background, and people say, oh, I can get him to talk. Okay, here's his phone number. Here's his, and people were all trying to claim they could get him to say something. And he's being interviewed by a guy out of Great Britain. And that's when they're talking about the control group. And he said, I've known to them for 40 years. Leave it alone. There's nothing you can do. You're up against the windmills. And he said, it's an elite group. He was being confronted. It's an elite group. If you were in that group, I would know. And so then the guy keeps pushing on. Is it all Americans? Is it international? He said, no, it's not all just Americans. And then he said, look, let me ask you a question. What do you know about ESP? And then the guy who was interviewing him was this Habib Azadadel out of Great Britain. He said, well, I don't really know. And he said, look, unless you understand about ESP and how it works, you will not be taken into the control group. Very few people understand how it works. And that was exactly what the Canadians had said in 1950 in the top secret Canadian government memo. It said, Wilbur Smith said, we had contact with high-level government officials in the States, not people on the street, high-level officials, and we were told the following things. Flying saucers exist. It's the most highly classified subject in the United States. There's a small group headed by Dr. Vannevar Bush. The subject is of tremendous significance to the Americans. And then in this download, the next line came into my head, and it said, and we were also told by American officials, this is 1950 already, we were also told by American officials that other things might be associated with the flying saucers, such as mental phenomena. The Americans aren't doing very well because they said if we're working on the problem, they're willing to exchange credentials and talk to us. And then Walker tells us the ESP thing in 1991. And then in 1993, Jan Harrison is in LA at the UCLA, the engineering alumni, and Ben Rich is there. And of course, Harrison has that experience as a kid in the backyard with his brother with the flying saucer, and he becomes obsessed, becomes an electrical engineer, and he wants to know how to get here. And so Ben is leaving the building, and he says, this is my chance. I got to talk to him. And as Ben Rich is leaving the building, he said, Ben, I need to know. I've been obsessed my whole life with flying saucers. I need to know, how did they get here? How does the propulsion system work? And Ben turns around and says exactly what Walker had said 2 years before. Let me ask you a question. What do you know about ESP? And Harrison said, oh, it means everything in time and space is connected. And Ben said, that's how it works. He gets in his car and drives away. So that was the whole thing. It was this idea. We chase these people all over the place. And I still do that. I watch, like, for example, now I watch very carefully Jim Semivan. I watch him extremely, every word he says, I listen very carefully, because that's what I found with Walker is you listen to the interview and you don't really just sort of, you hear it and then you go on to the next interview, and he's saying things that you later on will make a lot of sense. So I watch him and I watch Lakatsky. Lakatsky has released a lot of stuff that for example, Lakatsky says he's confirmed. He confirmed, he said the phenomena is a combination, the technology is a combination of physical and psychic material. That's a confirmation of what Walker said, and the Canadians said. It's the same sort of thing. But people will hear the interview and they just sort of gloss over that and don't realize the significant fact that these guys had been briefed. For example, Jim Semivan, I'm the first guy to release Jim Semivan's name. I knew about Jim Semivan from Chris Bledsoe back in 2016 already, that he was called the big man. And I was told by Chris Bledsoe, the big man said, the high-level officials are going to come forward and they are going to say UFOs exist and they are going to force disclosure. That's exactly what happened a year later when Tom DeLonge came forward and to the stars and all that kind of stuff. So when Semivan's talking, I had already gotten from a guy, his name is, we call him Larry the Loan Shark. He's a big, wealthy guy out of Philadelphia who helped Chris Bledsoe and knew Ron Pandolfi and knew Jim Semivan. He's the guy that identified Semivan. He didn't tell me his last name. I figured that out. But he said, my friend Jim had this experience. And, Jim Semivan had the experience with the beings in his room. And then what happened? He went to Ron Pandolfi. According to the story I was told, he went to Ron Pandolfi and he said, hey, I had these beings in my room last night and you're the UFO guy and I need to know what the heck's going on. And Ron Pandolfi said to him, you don't have a need to know. And he said, I don't have a need to know. Are you kidding? Because he's like a 2-star general in the CIA. Semivan said, I don't have a need to know. You bring your boss's boss in here and we'll see who doesn't have a need to know. So George Tenet into the room, from what I was told, and Semivan is told, leave it alone. Pretend it's a one-off. Pretend it'll only happen one time. This will ruin your career. Do not get involved with this. And when he left according to what I was told, when he left the in 2008, when he retired, Ron Pandolfi briefed him. And that's when he was read into what's actually going on. So when Jim Semivan's talking, I'm listening very carefully because he's actually admitted he knows where the legacy programs are. He knows a little bit about the communication, but he's not going to release classified material. And so there are still people that I watch very, very closely, every word that they say to figure out what are the highest level people know about what's actually going on.
Right. So do you think disclosure is being carefully controlled, or do you think it's actually going to happen at some point? Or
Well, I think what they're doing, and Bigelow talked about this in an interview in 2013, they're going to do confirmation but not disclosure. And Bigelow said is the same thing. He said, I'm in favor of confirmation, but I'm not in favor of disclosure. Lakatsky has said exactly the same thing. He says, I'm not a disclosure guy. And this comes down to this whole thing that what happened was when you have a recovered craft, you give it to a contractor. You have no other choice. I mean, if you're a lawyer or a governor of Georgia, like Jimmy Carter was, like, what do you know about UFOs? You don't know anything. So you hand it off to a contractor and you say, can you guys figure this thing out? And they go and they invest a bunch of money. So you get guys like Bigelow who said, this is our property. We put money into this thing, and you have this idea that we're not going to give the crafts back. And so that's what the standoff is that the contractors have invested money in this, and now the government wants it all back. And Lockheed shares are whatever they are, $463 a share. The Lockheed people are not about to give the technology so that you, Preston Dennett, can go file a patent and steal their technology. It all comes down to this money thing. So that's what they're doing. They're doing the confirmation thing. They're telling
Let me ask you a question, Grant.
Yeah.
This is important to think about. It's not just that. There's also the discovery that those that have already had the crafts have back injured enough to weaponize what they've learned, and that there are weapons in existence now and craft as a result of all of this. And it's not just them; it's a lot of different contractors, and they're worldwide. I know in this country, Sheehan is trying very hard to work it out to where they not only get this stuff back, but they have to promise not to use weapons from it. And it's like, the horse is already out of that barn, the door's closed, wake up. And it's almost like you're pounding your head a little bit too hard, going in one direction when you should be going in another. Has it occurred to anybody that you all just need to bloody identify who has the property and make that disclosure? In other words, we need to put people in the hot seat, not try to control them, but put them in the hot seat.
Okay, let me give you my take on listening to guys like Lakatsky and Semivan and the Canadians. They haven't got a clue. Lakatsky, Jim Semivan says there does not appear to be any out there. What is he talking about? He said people say all we're going to do is put together the dots. He said, you show me the damn dots. He said just because you got bodies and crafts doesn't mean you know what you're dealing with. Now, I would say they may have a little bit of technology. Eric Davis said they put it on the shelf in 1989 and they couldn't figure it out. It's called the core story. Like Valet, Putoff, and Green from CIA all got together in 1982 or whatever it was at the Denny's restaurant and said, there's a lot of stuff going on. What do we know for sure? And the conclusion was we're being interacted by some sort of intelligence. We have hardware and we can't figure it out. And if you hear this story, like Sheehan looks like he got in trouble for telling this story that the craft is bigger on the inside than outside. People say we got a craft that's bigger on the inside than outside. There's absolutely no way we got this. Or Lakatsky says, they asked him about when he talked about we have a craft and we've been inside the craft. And they said, well, what's in? And he basically said, if you knew what was inside the craft, the rest of the story would seem very primitive. It is so far beyond, I think, our understanding of what it is. What we may have from my thing of pushing Pandolfi and catching Pandolfi on camera is and Tim Taylor, the NASA guy, that we may have time travel. I had this thing. I had this thing with Tim Taylor.
Interdimensional time travel. You got it. Yep.
But in terms of this stuff, I think that they're swimming upstream. They really, and in fact, when Tom DeLonge had this encounter in the skiff, the head scientist says to him, "Okay, we'll tell you stuff," but he said, "What you may find when you get to the end of this thing is you may find a bunch of guys in suits standing around an elephant." It's this idea. Everybody thinks it's different, that it's that we've got this thing all back engineered. The main problem with the disclosure is this. If we had the Schumer Amendment said we were going to have a 9-person panel under the president, which would have subpoena power to force everybody to testify. You just drag people in there and you force them to tell you what's going on. It would have the eminent domain. The material would have had to been handed back to the government, and they would have had to release the documents, which would detail the inner workings of what they had done. The thing went through the Senate, 18-0 in the Intelligence Committee. As soon as it got to the House, there was 3 cockroaches in the House who blocked it. All these Mike guys, and they blocked it. And basically what it comes down to, I say, if there had been 6 more Democrats in the House of Representatives, we would have disclosure today, because it would not have been blocked. It was only blocked because these 3 guys had the power. They ran committees, and they ran the Speaker of the House, and they could block it. You can block a bill with one. If you get a party vote along party lines, it's going to be blocked. So that's when they sent the word back to Schumer. It's dead. We've killed it. We're going to kill it. And that's what they've done. And as long as these 3 guys are in power in the House of Representatives, like now they're doing this new thing with the Senate. Oh, they're going to write this new bill. It doesn't matter. The law works according to the fact that you need the House and the Senate to pass it. The House is not going to pass it because these 3 guys are still in power. And you get guys like Nuna and this other guy from Tennessee, when they're complaining and whatever. Well, then you have 2 options. You write a bill and you get it passed. That's the way it works. If it's law, everybody has to go according to the law. So you either write a bill and you get it passed, or you help get rid of these 3 guys that are blocking the bill. But as long as those guys are in there, you can write all the bills you want in the Senate. You can send them to the House. These 3 guys are still going to block that bill. And there's nothing you can do about it. It's the way politics works. And I hate to be the Canadian guy to tell people in the United States how their government works.
Not the only one. Yeah.
These guys are writing the law. And if you don't like the law, change
ever.
the law and quit complaining about it.
Right. It's because our government has a shadow government over it, and it's
No, it
worldwide.
doesn't. No, I disagree. It doesn't have a shadow government. 3 guys. I'm telling you, if these 3 guys had not been in power, if the Democrats had been in power in the House, we would have disclosure today. End of story. It was blocked by 3 guys. And then when it came to the UFO community to defend these guys, the one guy had a demonstration outside of Turner, Mike Turner, the guy from Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. He had a demonstration outside his building, and nobody in the UFO community raised a finger to help this guy. He had a demonstration. He had disclosure banners, and 6 people showed up. The morning after, it was raining, and there's 2 people showed up, and they basically shut the whole thing down. We have not defended the people who are coming. I dealt with a woman, her name was Laura Johnson, in the 1990s out of San Francisco, who went on a 42-day hunger strike to force disclosure. And everybody was saying, get off, you're crazy, you're making us look bad, stop it. And she was on Feinstein's front step with this thing. And then it came down to the end when she went off the 42-day hunger strike. I came to California and I said, Laura, why did you stop? And she said, because the UFO community didn't care. They didn't care if I died. They ridiculed me. And if they don't care, why should I care about them? And we've done this over and over again. And like the UFO disclosure, we've got this situation where the ions, if you take ions will not look at UFOs. They say, no, we're not going to touch that. All our funding will dry up. And if you go in the UFO community and there's a thing happening on the ship, I'm on the ship thing, and they have this disclosure panel. It's all men, totally men. This is boys and their toys. This is what disclosure is about now. It's the technology. Nobody cares. This is going to be an ontological, spiritual kick in the you know what, this thing comes out, and nobody wants to do that. And you bring up experiencers in the UFO community, and it's like, be quiet, stop talking, or we're going to bring out the cross and the nails. The experiencers in the UFO community are ridiculed. They are not paid any attention to. All we're interested in is the boys and the toys. Let's get space technology. Let's get cheaper gas. Let's get a more powerful AR-15 rifle. And that's what it comes down to. It's the nuts and bolts thing with these people really don't care. And it's the spiritual stuff behind it. And I'm saying that when it comes down to it, there's a lot of secular people in the UFO community are going to be fighting with the secular scientists to fight over the cyanide pills, because they're going to realize that everything they believed was wrong. This is going to be very spiritual. It's really going to have nothing. In fact, there was experiencer, and I'm trying to find out who it was that said it. I remember it years ago, said, do not go down the technological route. This is a trap. And that's what we're in. We're into technology. We're not interested in the spiritual, what messages of oneness and love people got. All we're interested in is the technology. End of story. That's all we want. We're trying to get it, and we're trying to scare people in Congress to give some money, and then everybody's going to draft off the funding that is provided by the government. Because Ron Pandolfi said that, the head CIA guy, who may be the guy that briefs the president, he said these guys have run out of billionaires to fleece, and now they're after fleecing the government. And that's what it comes down to. You're trying to scare the living daylights out of the government that there's these evil aliens there, and we need all this money to fund it. And everybody's sitting in the background trying to get patents because there's a lot of money at this, whether it's the biological tissue or whether it's the craft. And everybody's looking at money. There's only 3 rules in the United States. The number 1 rule is money, second rule is money, and the third rule is money. And that's what it comes down to. And contractors who have invested in this are not going to, unless you pry it out of their dead hands. And the way the Schumer Amendment, what happened? It was watered down, and it was signed that you didn't have to give up the material. There's no subpoena power, and you don't have to give up the documents. And it was signed by the House and the Senate, and it was passed by the president, which means it is the law. This is totally legal what they're doing. And if you don't like it, change the law. And the way it is, you need one party to have all the power and to get it through. What you have now is 2 parties. One is blocking it, and there's no Illuminati. It's 3 guys blocked this thing. If they had not blocked it, we would have UFO disclosure.
Well, the question is, why are they blocking it? And, I mean,
well,
I think
they're blocking it because they actually believe that the contractors have, even in the last interview that Jim Semivan did, he talked about this. The fact that these guys believe we put all this money in it. Now you're just going to take this stuff back. And they're interested in the guys who own the $463 shares for Lockheed. They're not interested in this sort of stuff. We control this. Big Bigelow said the same thing. We put money in this, and we're not going to give it away for nothing. And so it's basically, people say we got free energy. All energy is free, whether it's hydro, whatever it is. If you just got to get it. And this comes down to it, the same guys who control the oil industry and the hydro energy are going to control this. They're getting control of this sort of stuff because there's a lot of money at this. I mentioned the one guy, this Tim Taylor. He told me about his one invention that he put on the space shuttle, and he had it as part of a NASDAQ. And he believed that he got it from the beings. He can download inventions. He's got 40 some patents. And the one invention that he had in the company was sold for $100 million on NASDAQ. Now, I don't know how much of the UFO invention was the part of that company, but there's a lot of money at this. And if you're in a contractor, there's no way. Oh, because that's what Walker said to us. He said to us, we were talking to him, and we said, come on, Walker, you're an old guy. Give us the truth, whatever. He said, why should we change the rules and the regulations to satisfy your curiosity? And I went, wow. As soon as I heard that, I went, rules and regulations. There's rules and regulations. And that's basically what they say. That's what Bush told Jimmy Carter. Curiosity is not sufficient need to know. Because you want to know about what extraterrestrials are doing doesn't mean anything. We have this technology, and if we give it to the Russians, they're going to destroy us. This is going to make nuclear weapons look like matchsticks. And they know the bottom line of this thing, and they really don't care what people think. And Walker said the other thing, and nobody's ever answered the question. He said, okay, so when you figure it out, what are you going to do with it? And nobody has an answer, but it's the old idea. When the dog catches the car, what does it do? And it's like everybody said, well, we'll understand ourselves better, or, and it's basically, they're basically saying it's curiosity, and curiosity is not sufficient need to know for the military. The military controls this, and they believe it's very, fundamental to national security, and they really don't care if you're curious or what you want to do. They're not gonna give it up, and they're in control of it. And that's why I say to people like these people in the House that are whining and complaining and crying and with the Kleenex and stuff like that, if that's the way it is, get off your rear end and pass a bill. Get the 3 guys that are blocking it, or help other people. But is you can't just sort of blame Biden and the deep state and the Illuminati. They would love you to know the Illuminati, because you're going to be down some dark alley in France, and you're never going to find it. They love the idea of the Illuminati, because everybody chases the Illuminati instead of chasing the 3. These guys are the deep state. These 3 mics in the House are the deep state. You get rid of them, you have UFO disclosure, and that's the end of the story. There's no other explanation for it.
So do you think?
Wait. I want to say something real quick, okay? I want you to hear me.
Yeah.
The things that I know, my experiences, what I'm capable of doing and understanding with regards to ET and craft. The craft are, as you say, psychically operated. These beings are in advance of us, is so far in advance of us that we don't understand their technology completely. They use light technology. A lot of the technology we do have does come from back engineering. And I'll give you our telephones that are run on light cables, things like that. They got lasers from them as well. There are other things. There's a list that I can give you of what they've taken from that back engineered technology. But what they don't have is a power source. There's no source on this planet that approximates even 1/9 of what they're capable of powering up with. They're trying, they know it's nuclear, but they can't approximate it. They have no way to combine anything on this planet to make it run. The second thing is the technology is easy to understand from Tesla's point of view, because Tesla had the right idea about how this technology operates, okay? But the immense power of it is so high that they can't do it. They've lost people, killed them with radiation, trying to get them running in craft that they've designed that should be anti-grav. It is, therefore, they have for years, since the 50s, farmed out to different companies in strategically placed places, globally actually, to come up with the technologies to find out what they are. That's why we have AI. That's why we have satellite technology. That's why we have the type of phone technology that we have now, all of it. These are all creeping in, but they still are no closer. They are in our lifetime never going to figure it out. They cannot. It is that advanced. But they won't tell you the truth of that. They won't tell you that this is a group of entities, conscious entities, who come here and visit us and have known us for eons and will not disclose that they've screwed up whatever relationship they could have had with them. And they've been bartering, stealing, and taking what they could because of their paranoid, backward, non-conscious ability. It's all pretty much evil and money. You're right. Money, 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 money. They want to control, control, control. And they use money to do that. It is sickening to me that this is occurring. And you're exactly right. And the three guys in Washington, yes, they are. But I want you to ask yourself a question. Are these people inside or outside of what's going on, and how much do they know that they won't let it go through? Disclosure can't happen if it's being blocked by people who want what they want. And Talata, my contact, had something to say about this, and I want to say it to you, okay? He said, disclosure from those in authority over humanity will always tactically use plausible deniability. Their agenda supersedes all humanity. Our reality is their construct. It is their power and its weaponization which impugns all explanation to humanity. Therefore, learn all that is learnable and understand each of us must use our abilities to discern our position in this paradigm. Wisdom is your freedom from their tyranny. In other words, he said, get off your butts and start using your abilities, because you can't override that without having that going on for you, your psychic ability. Everybody's got the tools for it. Nobody's using it. Okay?
The question still remains, why should they give it up?
They will never give it up. Who cares whether they want to give it up? But if we exceed the boundaries of what they can do, because we can use our abilities, they haven't got a chance against the rest of humanity. Humanity needs to wake up. They don't have a chance. They can't stop what's coming. And
their only motivation to give it up would be to force them to do it in some way.
Well, you can't force somebody unless you have the ability to do that. And it comes from your psychic ability. And if we all work together and rise up in our ability, they're done. Period. And that's what Talata's been teaching me, and the ETs have been teaching me my whole life. And Grant, I know that you're wigged out about this, and I don't blame you. 100% don't blame you. You should be. We all should be. We should be as passionate as you are about all of this. But instead of telling the government to cough it up or make new rules, we need to understand what the hell's going on. And if we have ability, we can hear it in our heads. You had a download in 2012, yes?
Yeah.
Yes? That's can happen to any of us. That can happen to everyone. And if we all start downloading from them and getting the full story from the truth, they can't lie to us anymore. Period. Right?
Exactly. Which is why ETs are pushing their, basically agenda, though I don't like that word.
The ETs are covering up as well. The ETs are covering up as well, whoever this is. It's the same. It's the same as the idea of awe and curiosity. That it doesn't, to me, it doesn't matter what. It's the old idea that whatever mess we think we're in, we chose to be here at this time in this place in the middle of whatever mess we find ourselves in, and maybe we're here for a reason. And that it really doesn't matter to me, even if we destroy the world, it doesn't matter. It's all going to be a lesson. It's all made out of consciousness. We can make another world, and you're just going to keep spinning around until you get the lesson right. So exactly. To me, it really doesn't matter. It's true what we're doing, but we've got to remember we're like 1/10 of 1%. Nobody outside of the UFO community cares about this. My kid lives in Vancouver. It's like $2 million for a house. It's like mortgage payment is like $6,000 a month. My kid he's had a conversation with my dead father. He's had a UFO sighting. He could care less. He's trying to pay his bills. Most people, that's the way it is. They really don't care. And that's why Walker said, why should we change the rules and regulations to satisfy your curiosity? For 99% of people, that's all it is. They're curious. They say, oh, that'd be cool. We used to do that before, like 100 years ago. Now we go for sky watches. Let's go for sky watch. Like, oh, this is pretty cool. And then 100 years ago, what they did, and they didn't have the sky watches, but because there was no UFO stuff being discussed, but then it was like dead people, all the rich people, they'd all go and have seances, and let's talk to some dead people. And that's what we're doing. We're doing this entertainment thing. And the people always said this thing about, how can people paying $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 for Stephen Greer to have these skywatch things? And I realized there was all these very rich people in the California group. They were going out, and it was like entertainment to them. It was sort of like, or if you go to a skywatch, people got lasers, and they're like, you're supposed to be oming, you're supposed to be raising your vibration, and people are talking, and there's like a party atmosphere going on.
I agree.
It's still in it.
But there's another thing that I should bring up, and this is this thing where Lukatsky brought it up. And then I went out to Chris Bledsoe, and Andreasen brought it up, where he said we were inside the craft, and he said, and this is the part that I'm starting to move on. He said we were in there, and he said, and there was no engine, and he said, so what are we dealing with? That's what he said. So what are we dealing with? And that's what I say, the same thing. So I go to Chris, and I said, Chris, I remember this story you where when you got abducted, you were gone for 4 hours, and they flew you around in this orb thing. And he said, yeah, he said, it seemed like 4 months, which is this whole thing that 99% of what we believe, that we perceive, is going to be wrong. It was like 4 months. He said I was gone for 4 monts. And he said I was in this thing. It was like glass, but you couldn't see it. And he said you could touch it, but you couldn't see it. It was like sort of a weird type of glass. And then he said, and then I said, what about the engine? He said, Grant, I never saw an engine. And I wrote the book, UFO Sky Pilots, where I got 36 people who all came to me. I did not find these people. They all sort of arrived on my doorstep. And the same thing, there's this whole idea about what is the technology. And they would say to them, like Ron Johnson, so Ron, where would you like to go? And Ron Johnson says, I'd like to see the Milky Way from a distance. They said, okay, Ron, this will take about 1 second. It's going to be a very intense G-force. But I need you to go within yourself, Ron. It is within you. When you can imagine it within yourself, then we will go there. And then he said it was 1 second later, and he looked out the window, and there was the Milky Way, 50 to 70,000 light years. So that's the kind of technology. And the same thing happened to two women who were told, when you can imagine it, go within yourself. When you can imagine it within yourself, then push the button. And she said, we're on the other side of the galaxy. There's boom, instantaneously on the other side of the galaxy. And so if we got that technology, I think that's pretty good. But I really sense that there's this kind of stuff. And Andreasen said the same thing. She was brought to the one, to see the one. And she talked about being in this glass orb type thing. And she said it had a bench in there, and she's looking around trying to find the engine. And Chris Bledsoe said the same thing. And you have this whole thing that there is no engine. And then I started even looking at the technologies, and you have all these different technologies. And I actually asked George Knapp, he didn't answer. I said, George, you have the whole thing with Area 51 with the 115. And we wrote up the book when we did UFOs, Area 51 and government informants. We were actually, while it was happening, we were following Lazar as this thing was happening. And the book was written in 1990. And so I said to him, I said, have you got anybody else who has talked about the 115? And I pretty well guarantee you there's nobody. And it's almost like every technology, you start looking at all the technologies, everybody's got a different technology of what they think the aliens are doing. And then you start wondering, like, I wonder if this is we're creating part of this thing. We're part of this thing, that there is no one technology. There's all these different technologies. And that's when Lukatsky talks about the fact that he says, I'll sooner or later I'll be dead, and Colm Kelleher will be dead, and most people watching this will be dead, and they'll still be trying to figure this thing out. And this gives the idea that I get when I look at the very high level people is they have not got a clue. They've got hardware, they've got bodies, they haven't got a clue what's going on.
Okay, we need to take a quick station ID break, guys. So I want to let you all know that you are watching The Light Gate. I'm Preston Dennett, your host. My co-host is Dolly Saffron. Our guest tonight is Grant Cameron. We've been talking about his research, starting with the sighting of Charlie Red Star, and moving on from there, covering all kinds of topics such as disclosure and presidents and all the things that are going on in this field, contactees, piloting UFOs, and so forth. But we are airing live on several platforms. We are on 105.3 FM with the UFO Paranormal Radio Network and the United Paranormal Radio Network, 107.7 FM, both from the beautiful city of New Orleans. We are, of course, also streaming on Roku. If you have Roku, check it out. We're on YouTube and Facebook. We still have another hour with Grant, so keep those questions coming. I'm putting little stars next to them, and we'll get to them at some point. But yeah, this is exciting. You've got a lot of knowledge, Grant. You're putting it out as fast as you can. I'm doing my best to follow you. You talk fast like all contactees do. I suspect on some level you are a contactee, Grant, just because, like you said, there's
been downloaded. That's it. That's the effect of the download. Yeah,
there's a certain level of synchronicity going on with all this.
You have pretty good psychic ability, I would say. So, yeah.
So my question to you, because I'm curious about this. You've done so much research into how this is being handled at very high levels, particularly presidents in the U.S. with Carter and Trump and Clinton's and all of that. Do you think they're in the loop, or how much in the loop are they?
Absolutely.
How much control do they have over the subject?
Yeah,
do you think-
absolutely. That's the other thing they want. They want you to think the president is some dummy who doesn't know anything. He's just and I play the clip. When I lecture, I play the clip of Truman. And he said, yeah, we had a discussion with the military almost every time we met with them. So, Truman knew. Eisenhower, there's this whole, a lot of stories about him having this stuff. The Johnson, I've actually released the Johnson UFO study. Most people don't know Johnson actually had James McDonald, if you remember the researcher James McDonald, was a good friend of the president. And he forced the president to do a UFO disclosure. That was done. There was a book that was being done on it by an assistant to the president, and all the people that were involved on that panel were the same people that were involved with To the Stars. There was the head of the Weird Desk. There was a general from Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. There was a general from NRO, and all this sort of stuff. And in the end, the conclusion, I've got the conclusion to the study for the president, said, yeah, UFOs are real, absolutely real, all this kind of stuff, descriptions. And we really don't know. That's it. We don't know anything else other than that. And so you get Obama talking. He said, yeah, we've got these films, but we don't know what's going on. Either he's lying or he's telling the same thing as everybody else. I think the presidents know. I just think the mistake we're making is we're assuming that we have it like this Judeo-Christian view of the world, that the world's about to come to an end. Jesus will come rolling back in here, and we got one piece to put in the puzzle. And I think my mission, I think now, is to point out the fact that no, it's exactly the opposite. The more you look at it, the more complex it gets, the more weird it gets. Because I know in '75 it was straight out nuts and bolts, ET, and now I mean I can't. There's nothing that's too weird that I'm looking at. So I think it just gets weirder and more complex. The universe gets more complex the more you look at anything in nature. We assume that we've got it all figured out and that we just need one more piece. And if they would give us the one piece, we'd all live in peace and stuff like that. And I don't think that's the way it is. I think it gets more and more complex. And when you look at Lukatsky and all these people, they seem to say the same thing, that like Semivan sums it up. Because you got bodies and crafts doesn't know what you're dealing with. He said, I don't think I will ever live to see what this is all about. And he declares he knows where the legacy programs, he knows the communication program and stuff like that. He's not going to talk about classified material. But I think, the president knows. In fact, Semivan said something that I really didn't, and I studied the president for 3 decades. I didn't know this. If you remember back to the MJ-12 document, they claimed that it was an executive order. So the president will sign an executive order. Now, like Semivan said that he thinks, and when I hear him saying it, I'm going, he must have heard this from somewhere. He talks about a presidential president's emergency act that he puts out. I can't remember the exact term it was. And he said that the president can actually stand. This is what he thinks this is. The president, Truman, would say, okay, we're going to make this secret. Only people on the list, the bigot list, are going to know. It's going to be very highly classified. And he said, you cannot believe the power that the president has. And so he's saying it's an executive program and that Congress has no right to know about it, that the president can block this, and that the president controls this whole thing, which is a different story. The original story I told you was these 3 congressmen, if you can get the control out of their hands, disclosure will go through, because they had the whole disclosure thing, the program over 6 years. And I remember Chris Bledsoe telling me in 2016, they were going to run this in 2016. In 2016, Hillary Clinton comes out and she uses UAP. She said, oh, there's a new nomenclature. It's now called UAP. She's the one that started that whole thing. And she said, I'm going to go back in, and I don't care what Bill did. I'm going to bring this thing out to the open and all this sort of stuff. And Chris Bledsoe told me before the election, they told me this thing. High-level officials are going to come forward. They're going to disclose this whole thing. So Hillary was going to do the disclosure thing. Hillary loses the election. I phoned Chris Bledsoe the same day. I said, okay, so Hillary lost the election. What happens now? He said the light is still green. It's going. They're still going to do it. And what they had to do, because all these 3 guys, two generals and Robert Weiss from Lockheed were outed in the Podesta emails, they had to redo it. So they had to redo the thing and get new people and sort of cover up. And it took Tom DeLonge a year to do this thing. Chris Bledsoe told me in 2016 that it would be 2017 to 2024. So it was a 6-year period, exactly the same thing as the Schumer Amendment. This 6-year period, it's the same plan that was done under Hillary Clinton, and it failed with Hillary Clinton because she lost the election, and it failed this time because these 3 guys had control in the House, were able to block the bill. And as I said, until you get it, but if you go to what the president said, if you go back to what the president said, he said there's national security implications. So the House passed it, the Senate passed it, and then Biden was forced to sign it. And he said, I understand the idea of giving information to Congress because they're responsible for funding and making sure the funding is done right, but there's national security implications. So yeah, I think the president knows. I think they basically go to him and they say almost what they said to Jim Semivan: do not touch this, Mr. President. This is for real. We're working on this. We really don't know what's going on. Do not touch this. This will ruin your career. Because, and it's Semivan says, you say, well, the president stands up and says something and he answers this question. There's only 1 million questions following the one question. And the president you can't have the president, the most powerful guy in the world, standing up and saying, well, we really don't know. Well, we don't know about that either. Well, we don't know about that. If he has all the answers, that's fine. But the president is this powerful guy. So, yeah, I think the president does know. I've always said the president knows. The president's been briefed in on it to a certain level, and it's high-level security. So if you go to somebody on a waived, unacknowledged special access program and you talk to them, they have to lie. And that's what Reed did. Reed lied. He was involved in this meeting. If you see this, if you go back to the Lukatsky interview, Lukatsky said in 2011, we were in a congressional facility. And there was a senator with us, and there was an undersecretary, and I assume of defense, was in the room. And that's when they had that long discussion. He said, I can't get into the rest of it. I have to get approved. But there was a long discussion about the fact that they had a craft and they'd been inside the craft, which means Reed was in that meeting in 2011. He knew that they had the program. And then you have this sort of distorted view of disclosure that Reed comes out and reads this guy and he puts the money in and he gets this UFO program with Skinwalker Ranch and all this kind of stuff. And he gets the whole thing going. And he's this big disclosure guy. He's not, because in 2009, the way the program got killed is Reed wrote a letter to the Undersecretary of Defense, and he says, we've got this UFO program, and we would like to hide it in the black budget. And if he had gotten approval, you never would have heard of OSAP, you never would have heard of ATIP, and because it didn't, it leaked out. And then when Reed was confronted, it was in the New York Times that Reed said they had hardware, and Reed made them withdraw it, pulled the thing from the New York Times. He said, that's not true. No, he has to deny it. He had to deny. Reed knew in 2011 that we were inside a craft, and there was an undersecretary. That's executive branch, and that's Congress. Were in the room, and they knew. So people are being briefed in this, and that's the whole deal. If you're in the Gang of Eight and you've been briefed and you're being told that we've got this high level, the Canadians said it was the most highly classified secret in the United States. And if the couple of Gang of Eight of the Gang of Eight know, they cannot talk about it. They have to deny the program. And that's what it is. It's legal. It's classified. And if you talk about it, they'll throw you in jail. Or Semivan says, you look at Gresh. Gresh made this testimony to the Inspector General and to Congress. But Semivan says, watch very closely. He's not talking because he knows what the rules are. If he steps over that line, they're going to throw him in jail. It's highly classified. And so you have a situation in the United States where you have a $900 billion defense budget that's running the show. And if you think you're going to turn that around, good luck. They're running the show. And it's like when your mother would tell you during your life, you made your bed, now lie in it. You have a $900 billion defense budget that is running the show. They have the power, and good luck if you think you're going to get it. It's like, what are they? They're going to shut down the $900 billion defense budget and all go get honest day jobs? No, everybody's making billions of dollars. They are not shutting this industry down. Everybody's making money. And that's what Eisenhower warned in his last speech in Congress. He said, beware the military industrial. And he added, they took one word out. He said, beware the military industrial congressional complex. He took the word congressional as to not offend Congress. That's what you got now is the military industrial congressional complex. That's why you've got the F-35 jet fighters made in 47 different states. Why? Because everybody's got their hand in the jar. Everybody's got jobs in their district. And if the F-35 overruns by double the budget, nobody's going to vote against it because everybody's in the loop. Everybody's getting money. And you're not going to turn that around. How do you turn that around? Lockheed gives money to every single congressman and senator. This is how the industry has worked. And it's like your mother said, you made your bed, now lie in it. This is a situation we have created, and I don't see any way you're going to turn it around. They're just not going to. If you have $463 Lockheed shares, you're not going to say, oh, well, we'll let people have curiosity and let's just put it out and lose all this money. The bottom line for the Lockheed is to make money for the shareholders. End of game.
Yeah, it's sad to me. The money is the whole thing. I mean, it's such a mess. We've got $1 trillion deficit, and I've got
22 trillion, 23 now.
It's all fake. Money is just completely.
Yeah.
And if they get the money they want, what's going to happen is the budget's going to go from $900 billion to $1 trillion. And all this, the black world is in trouble. I said the black world's in trouble. They need the white world people to help them figure out the problems that they have with this stuff. And that's what they want, is they want more funding. And I tell this very famous story that we were part of the negotiation with the Canadians, with the Canadian government. There was a Senator Larry Maguire had come forward and said he was interested in UFOs. And we didn't realize he was briefing 9 other members of parliament in Canada on UFOs. And I made a proposal to Maguire's office, to his aide, and said, hey, if you got these people, what we're going to do, let's have a committee. And I'll get Lou Elizondo, and I'll get Chris Mellon, and I'll get Gary Nolan, and I'll get all these people when they'll be on a committee, and we'll have this YouTube thing. And then you get the MPs, and they all will ask questions of these guys, and we'll broadcast this thing around the world. And the Canadian government, the Prime Minister's science advisor, was going to use this as cover. They were going to use this as cover to say, oh, look at the interest in UFOs in Canada. All these MPs want to know about UFOs. And so the whole thing was going along great. And then the Elizondo and Mellon said, well, you got to do this thing with the military. You got to get these military guys. And we said, well, we don't have any military guys. They're not in the military. Well, we need these military. You bring them in front of the committee, and we're trying to explain how Canadian committees work. They don't have spending power and stuff like that. And they kept going. And they said, well, we can't tell you what to do. It's Logan Act. We can't tell the Canadians what to do. And they kept going on this thing. We said, no, the Canadians want to do, the science advisor to the Prime Minister wants to do a scientific investigation on UFOs. And it's like, no, you got to do this military thing. And it's like, no, we're not. And we tried to explain it to them. And then finally, the aide to the MP said, no, it's a scientific investigation. And Chris Mellon said, I quote, that's it. That's the poison pill. I'm gone. And the whole thing shut down because we wouldn't do the threat thing. We wouldn't do this thing of the threat to scare the living daylights out of everybody. We want to do a scientific investigation. And they all walked away.
Yes, of course, because the military controls all of it. You're exactly right. And it's all culminating in one for one. I mean, y'all have to sit there and seriously ask yourself why. Why is this happening? What's the agenda here? What's the end game for all of this? And basically, if you look at all the variables and all the things that are going on around us, we have 8.4 billion people on this planet. We're no longer sustainable. They've already started genocide. They've already started depopulation. They've already started a whole bunch of things. They've already gone underground and have bases. Our military, world militaries, have the 1% of the population that are going to go underground when bad things start happening, and they already are. And the reason the military is controlling everything in every single country globally is because it's all going to come to the day where we were told that there is a national security threat to us and it's coming from ET. And you don't know what's going to hit after that because they have plans. They have real big plans. They spent all this money. They've got all this technology. They've got all these planes, engines, new types of weapons and everything. And let me tell you something. They're going to make you think ET's coming for us. And that is the message from ET through me. I'm telling you. And I guarantee you have other contactees telling you the same bloody thing. It is going to come down to that because they're going to
do that already. Sure, they're doing that already. The threat,
yes,
the threat narrative,
absolutely.
the footprints in the room and stuff like that.
Exactly, and that's why the military is in control of it. And that's what I mean by the shadow government. It is the military control. It is all of them.
Yeah, it's just another enemy. I mean, we've got perceived enemies. The United States of America, like they say, China's the big threat. China has one base outside of China.
People. It's your own people. It's worldwide. Yes.
United States has 800 bases around the world.
Yep.
Like they say, why are the aliens here? What are they doing? And it's like, well, why are you in every country in the world? I mean, it's like, well, they think they're saving the world. It's like, well, I guess they think they're saving the world.
Why do you think they had ET sentinels flying all over your town and watching that North Dakota base? Okay, they watch everything we do nuclear all the time. Yeah. They are completely aware of how stupid we are, and it's just one form of their technology watching ours. And they know it. The governments know it as well. They know that they're under scrutiny, and they know what's going on right now. And it's
So to me, it doesn't matter whether it's like what difference it makes. So it becomes established. The government knows. Big deal. It's like I wrote an article in 2009, the 64 reasons they decided not to tell you the truth. And I had the Stephen Greer thing, the stock market's going to melt down and people are going to jump off bridges and the religious people are all going to go crazy, whatever. And then 2017 comes and they acclimatize everybody. And what happened when the New York Times said, oh yeah, by the way, the government is investigating UFOs. Everybody went, yeah, I knew that already. It's like, forget it. We know that already. And that's the thing where, but it doesn't really matter. So what if the government knows? What difference does it make? It doesn't really matter. It's what are you doing? Why did you come to the world? Why am I here? What am I supposed to be doing? Because that's what we want to do. That's what Tim Perchette is doing. He's whining and complaining about the deep state and the Illuminati, and it's like, get off your butt and go pass a bill. I mean, if you're whining about it, you're the government. You're the guy that passes the bills, and you're blaming everybody else for this. And so it really doesn't matter whether the government knows or not. It's why are we here? At this particular time, we can complain all we want about the situation, but if this third three-wave thing that was been discussed endlessly in the UFO community is that there's three waves coming in to raise consciousness, then we are here to do something, and we chose to be here at this time. So quit complaining and do what the hell.
Exactly. 100% agree with you. Exactly. We just need to wake up. We need to do something about our consciousness. We need to develop our morality. We need to develop our spirituality.
But it's an individual thing.
All of it. Yes, it is individual. Good point. That's the point I keep trying to make everybody. We, each of us individually are responsible for what we do know and can attend to spiritually, cognitively, consciously, all of it. And we all need to work on that. Each of us. It's a thing.
I don't think we're any different than any other social or political movement. I've said this numerous times. So if you take Max Planck, the father of quantum physics, I mean, he had the same thing. It's like we're complaining, oh, nobody takes us seriously, oh, whatever. And Max Planck invented quantum physics. And he got the same hassle we're getting. And he said, you do not win by convincing your opponents that you're right. Science advances one funeral at a time, and the new generation is not offended with the idea. And that's what we have is that you and I, you have your show, you have a lot of people watching your show, you and I discuss it, you discuss it, and it's like the consciousness before 2017 in the New York Times article. People discuss it, and then the consciousness rises, and then one day it suddenly flips, where I would tell people, it's like, so when it became acceptable for gay marriage? And everybody goes, yeah, I don't know, like 10 years ago, 15 years. Nobody knows. It just sort of happens. It's just going to sort of happen. And that's the way it is, that we have to do what we are here to do and not worry about, because it's totally irrelevant whether the government, no, that's what Walker said. What difference does it make? So what? He said, nobody's blown up the world yet. What are you worried about? And it's sort of true. He said, like, go do something else. And if we think it's important, then we have to put our effort forward. And as we discuss it back and forth, the consciousness is rising. We're having this discussion. And there's lots of people listening, and people don't realize. That's why I say the movie people are so important. I'm helping a couple of guys do movie type stuff, and because that's the whole thing. Is that's subjective or subliminal. The people, instead of going to them and saying UFOs exist, and they say, please take 5 steps back, leave me alone, whatever. You put it on TV on a Netflix thing or something, and somebody says, nothing else to watch. Well, let's watch this stupid UFO thing. And they don't realize they're getting subliminally programmed.
This subject has saturated our culture. It's in everything.
Yes.
Advertising, video games, books, of course, movies.
Yeah, so it will eventually come forward that everybody knows. The key part to me is the message. I say it's going to be an ontological, spiritual shock to a lot of people. And I know a lot of people in the UFO community are just furious. Do not bring up spirituality, New Age. Don't bring up any of that kind of stuff. And guess what? That's what it's all about. To me, like the aliens, just playing a game. This is like, we all agreed to come to the world at this time. You agreed to be Preston Dennett, put on the Preston Dennett puppet, and I agreed to be the Grant Cameron puppet. And then you have even the things where you have this. I don't know if you're familiar with the owl story. So Mike Clellan tells a story about being on the side of the road in Utah. Have you heard that story? Where he sees the UFO, and then suddenly he's out of his body and he's above the UFO, and he comes down into the UFO, and he said, and I asked him about this a couple of days ago. I said, clarify me, is this true? There was the gray suit hanging on the hook. And he said, I'm not too sure how that actually happened. It seemed like there was a gray suit on a hook, and boom, he's in the gray suit, and he's looking at himself. He's going, oh my goodness, I'm a gray. And he's looking, he's a pretty tall guy. And he's looking, I'm the same height as these grays beside me. And then he goes in and he said, it's like the council in Michael Newton. After you die, you go in front of the council, and he's in front of the council. And he said, it looks like a hotel room in Indiana, a cheap hotel room with cheap carpeting and a table. And these beings are all behind this table, and they say, it's time. He says, time for what? He says, it's time for you to get going. What do you mean get going? What do you mean? You volunteered. I volunteered. Have you volunteered for what? And he said, you volunteered for this. And suddenly he realized what it was. And he goes, you never told me it was going to be like this. You never told me it was going to be this tough. You never told me it was going to be this depressing. And he starts yelling and screaming at these aliens. And then they sort of calm him down. And then Yvonne Smith, who's doing the regression, asks him and says, hey, Mike, so what's with the owls? And he says, the owls are not important. The owls are just a symbol. The owls are not important. The owls are just a symbol on a door. It's the door that's important. And it's the idea it's on the door, and then you go, hey, I wonder what's behind the door. And you open the door and you look out, and it's this vast unexplored universe. And what the phenomena is doing, it's using UFOs, owls, whatever, and it's just moving you from one door to the other. And we're moving down this thing as they gradually raise the consciousness. They probably have done it on 1,000 different planets. Like I say to people, okay, 1896, all these aliens were here from Mars. Like they came, do you believe they actually came from Mars on these wooden ships flying through the vacuum of space? And where did they go? Where did all those aliens go from 1896? And then they changed into the aliens of the 1950s, and they're wearing suits and they got long hair, and then the Mission Rama, they're good different aliens. And you see this thing and you start to realize this may just be a play. We're doing this sort of a play. We all
I don't know. I'm convinced that we are dealing with actual extraterrestrials. Having talked to so many people who are
okay. So let me ask you then: do you believe in 1896 that these extraterrestrials were from Mars on these wooden ships?
No, but it's perspective, the age of the time. Their physical minds were pareidolia as they understood the information they were getting.
So the beings will appear according. Barbara Streisand's stepson is a full-blown experiencer, and he said that they told him that when we come into your world, we go into your head and we see what's in your head, and it is with that we actually teach you a lesson. So they are etheric beings, and I'm showing all these things from the 1940s, 1950s, the sightings. There was no grays. This whole database that I found, there's no grays. There's no reptilians. There's guys with bubble helmets, like out of cartoons from the 1940s and 50s, stuff like that.
But all this doesn't preclude them being physical extraterrestrials like us.
They are, but you're right.
I think that's where we disagree. I think that's where the more I look at it, the more they indicate, no, this is not what it is. Even Sherry Wild. So Sherry Wild, her being comes to her and says, oh, I'm from Andromeda. And then it goes to the publisher, and the publisher said, he's a gray? Yeah, he's a gray. He's a Zeta. Well, he can't be from Andromeda then. What's going on? Go ask him. So she goes to Dash, just say, you said you're a fan of Andromeda. You're a gray. Are you actually an alien? And he goes, no, that would not best describe who I am. I'm an etheric being on a mission in the cosmos for the creator. That's what I believe is going on.
We're all etheric beings, though.
What's that?
We all are etheric beings. We all have interdimensional.
Exactly. And we're playing a role. All the world's a stage. All the men and women are but actors. We're playing a role. We come in and you pretend you're an alien. I pretend I'm a human. And we have this little play thing. And
we're all in the third dimension here. We're in a hard gravity.
You should read a book called Coma. One of the things, read a book called Coma. I have a friend, this friend that was driving the car. His wife had a coma. She was in an induced coma for 16 days. Read the book Coma and tell me that there's a solid world. Because in the book Coma, you have this situation where these people say, I had this thing. It was not a dream. It was not an illusion. It was not a dream. It actually happened to me. I was gone for 80 years. I had 4 kids. The one guy was gone for 100,000 years. DMT, you have the same thing. The guy says, how long was I gone? The guy said, 10 minutes. He goes, 10 minutes, 1,000 years in 10 minutes. And you start to see this thing like it becomes so plastic. And so is that a real event? Were they actually gone for 10,000 years? I talked to Chris Bledsoe just a couple of days ago. I said to Chris about this thing, and he said he was gone for 4 hours. He said, when I was on the other side, I was gone for 4 months, not 4 hours. I was gone for 4 months. And you start realizing this is getting very plastic. The more I look at it, the more it impresses me that everything we're going to believe is wrong. I did the psychedelic book and I had the encounters, and they kept telling me, you think you know what's going on? You have not got a clue what's going on. And they kept hammering me on this thing over and over again. And now that's the role I have is I play this thing where I say, I don't think anybody's got a clue. This thing just gets more complex and more complex and more complex. There are no ground traces anymore. There's no windows and crafts anymore. They've gone to orbs, and it's just the people speaking light.
Oh no, there's really crafts. There are crafts, as I'm telling you, but they're not here right now. They have bugged out, and there's a scientific reason for that, because their magnetosphere's down. They can't fly here anymore. They don't want to crash anymore. They are physically not here. They left 2 years ago, a little over 2 years. So everybody's confused now, because they don't know what they're seeing. And yes, they can spy on us by remote viewing, and you see them as orbs, okay? So that is a spiritual ability that they have. They can come here that way. But before they left, they were physically here. I can attest to it, personally attest to it, and I can prove it. You and I need to talk privately, and you need to look at my evidence and what I'm telling you. And I want you to see that there are two sides to this. Yes, they can be very spiritual. Yes, they can visit you, OBE. Yes, they can remote view you. Yes, they can contact you psychically.
Pull you out of the time
in the room
all
with
kinds of things.
But they're physically able to come here, but they are not here right now. They left. They had to, because it is too dangerous for them to be in our solar system. They cannot, their craft are as vulnerable to it as every time we have a CME, it can knock them down if they're in our atmosphere, because our magnetosphere is screwing them. And because of the type of technology that they use, it is no other reason other than that. And I know at least 5 physicists who agree and understand this phenomenon. And the government won't tell you the truth about it. And most people won't tell you the truth about it. And the only people who know the truth about it are scientifically educated to know the truth about it. You know, and humanity's been dummied down so much that they don't conceive of it. And that's part of the reason that I stayed behind. I should have left with them, and I didn't. I stayed behind to convince people that this is a physical phenomenon. You're in the third dimension. It is gravity hard, corporeal. You have blood. I dare you to cut your arm up and not scream. Okay, it's real. You're real, but you are also capable of being outside your body. You're capable of remote viewing. You're capable of being highly psychic and seeing and doing almost anything. The expanse of your abilities is unlimited, and that's what ET's trying to teach us. And we're not listening. And that's not a good thing. And their motto is know all that is knowable and then proceed. And it is incredible incredible to me that people want to argue about what the government's doing. And you're right, it's stupid. Don't listen to them. Give it up, because they're going to go nyeh, 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 until they try to kill you. And
Really
they
off
already
hand
are.
wringing. That's what I call
That's
it.
right. We have big things coming at us. ET knows this. They're trying to come back. They can't come back until our magnetosphere straightens out again. And when they do, they're landing because we're leaving with them. And if you're not here to go, you're not here to go. And that's what the government's banking on. They want you dead because they were not invited at all. None of them. They were told no because you are violent miscreants and we're not taking you. We're not putting you into our bloodlines. Forget it. And that made them crazy. And that's why they are crazy and doing all this crap to us.
I've been in this for 50 years. 50 years I've been in this. I have gone after the president of the United States. I talked to Dick Cheney. I went after the highest level CIA people. We went after everybody who had any power. I have never been threatened. I have never had any problem with any of that. None of it.
Really? My life is in danger as we speak. They've tried to abduct me. The government have tried to take me out at least 3 times that I could prove, and more than that. My father worked for the government, and he was in this shadow government, high level. And I grew up with this. I know all about it. I've known all about it my entire life. And ET has been with me every step of the way. And my father also. My dad barely got away from them by the skin of his teeth. And then 3 years later, he passed away because it took that long. I'm not playing about this. This is all real. And we need to wake up to the fact that your time is very limited. We're talking less than 8 years before we have a CME that downs our grids to the core of this planet. And nobody's going to be happy because you will be living like a Stone Age man with no help and no future. It is going to happen.
Doesn't matter.
I know. We're all going to die anyway. That's right. We're all going to recycle. But I would rather die smart than stupid. I would rather know the truth than to live this lie that they've projected on everybody. Okay? It's not true. And it's got to stop. It's just got to stop. We have to wake up. You are 100%, when you downloaded and I heard about it and I read about it from you, I realized that, yes, they're talking directly to your head. They're trying to get you to do exactly what you're doing. And that is bring up the spirituality fact, bring up the consciousness level, bring up the fact that we're eternal, period. Okay. And that this is just a vessel. We come back over and over and over again, all over this universe, not just here, but everywhere. We're all related to one another across the universe. ET are us. We are them. We are all one. And this shadow that we're living in is not okay because it's a lie. It's a 100% lie. And people are living in it and they need to wake up. That's why I stayed back.
But why does it have to be perfect? Why
it doesn't have to be perfect. That's the point. It isn't
live
perfect.
with what you got.
Learn from perfect. You learn from adversity.
From adversity, exactly.
You learn from pain. You don't get wisdom without experience. And this is one hell of an experiencer place to be. I'm just not just an experiencer. You're one. Everybody is one here. Okay. We're all part of this.
So the more bad things that happen, the better it is. I mean, exactly. I've got another book coming out where I talk. I have a whole bunch of people who came to me who had this vision. One was the Rand psilocybin lab at Johns Hopkins University. One was a doctor out of Canada. One was in a float tank. All these different people, and they had the same vision that I had. I did 27 high dose sessions with psilocybin, and I came to the conclusion that there was somebody with me. There was somebody behind me, entire self that was with me, and that I had the vision, and this vision that people, Nick Cook, his wife, the guy that wrote Hunt for Zero Point, had it, where she comes back and says, everything is perfect. Everything is exactly the way it's supposed to be. I've got an entire chapter on all these people who have this vision of everything is perfect and they knew the answer to everything. 40% of all experiencers say at one point during your experience, they knew the answer to everything in the universe. Near-death experience, 31% say that. And that's what I look at is these people say everything is exactly the way it's supposed to be. It's just, you do what you got to do, but everything's perfect. Everything is working out just fine.
Yeah.
And that's a completely different view.
Yeah, in source, we have the same knowledge as the All Mind, okay, God. All right. In source, we know everything.
Tapping into it, sure.
But we're
God
educated
idiots
in source. And that's why we come into this dimension to learn the hard way, to gain wisdom.
Exactly. So enjoy it. Enjoy the pain.
Yeah. Exactly. So we are going to fight this fight, and try to make.
This is what I disagree with is this whining in government. These people who are the people are supposed to pass the laws.
I know. I just want them to
whining and
shut up.
complaining and blaming the mother-in-law. The dog ate the homework, and it's terrible. And it's like, do something then. Come on, you run the law. You're the Illuminati. You're the government. You're the one that creates the law. You can write whatever law you want, and if you make it legal for these people to do it, it's going to be legal for them to do it, and there's nothing you can do to stop them.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I want to push back a little bit on the ET explanation hypothesis. Are you saying that none of this is ET in your opinion?
Well, they're all. If you interview Yossi Ronan, who's an experiencer out of he wrote the book One.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so he says he was told, when we come into your world, we take on a body. We can take on whatever body we want. Yes, they come into the physical world, they can take on a body. We don't need a body. You can do the same thing, you just don't realize it. Or when I was talking to the beings from Great Britain, these two beings, they wanted me to interview them. So I asked them, first question I asked them, say, hey, so are you extraterrestrials? And they call themselves CHON, C-H-O-N, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, because they don't want to be known as aliens or anything like that. They don't have any hands. They don't have any feet. They don't have any they're just black. They don't have any eyes, ears, and stuff. And I said, so first question, are you an extraterrestrial? And they said, would you like us to be an extraterrestrial? We could do that if you want. But we can even take you to our planet. But no, we're not extraterrestrials. We've always been here. You're the visitor. So then I started asking everybody. I said, hey, Nancy Tremaine, she's the first 3 months before Betty and Barney Hill, or 2 months before Betty and Barney Hill. I said, Nancy, do you ever ask him if he's an alien? She said, yeah, I asked him. He said, we are not alien to this planet or any other planet. We have always been here. And I started asking all these questions, and that kind of, no, Sherry Wild, nope, I'm an etheric being. So we are etheric beings. We come into play these roles, and we get this connection that you may have been a gray before. So you have these connections. We're connected to whatever this consciousness is.
Yeah, we're
all one thing.
We're physical beings living on a planet. I mean, we know this.
Yeah, it's fourth dimensional beings. We're in contact with them.
Yeah, the other question I ask is people when I see them, they're on the ship, and I say, hey, you got any clothes on? They go, no, I don't got clothes on. I said, do you have any sex organs? They go, no. Then you think that's kind of weird. It's got no sex. He's a biological being. If you look at the alien autopsy being, the alien autopsy, he's got no belly button, got no nipples, got no.
Those are AI.
I asked Betty Andreas.
AI biologicals.
I asked Betty Andreas and her husband. I said, hey, you saw the being. Both of them saw the being first when they're 1946. I said, hey, did the being ever get any older? And Bob Lucas says, no, but aliens live a long time. It's like, okay, whatever. And that's the whole thing. You start looking or
what about the whole hybrid baby report?
Well, they may be doing that. Yeah, they're doing something in the physical world. They're coming into the physical world. The question is,
these babies are growing up. I've talked to people who've seen their hybrid baby, and then as a child, and then as an adult.
Well, yeah, the hybrid, sure. The hybrid.
I have 4 hybrid children, and I am a hybrid, just so you know.
That's different game.
I'm not fully human here. I am a hybrid. Okay.
What about the craft being held in custody and supposedly reverse engineer? Are those not physical craft?
Yes, you can come into the physical world. They can manifest. It's like in the guy that invented Stanford, started Stanford University. His brother was into seances. So he was in Australia at seances. There's a big collection of his stuff at Stanford University. And in one of the seances, a turtle fell out of the ceiling. And he had the turtle and it was in his garden his whole life. And when the turtle died, he put the shell in Stanford University. So is that an extraterrestrial turtle? No, it's coming out of whatever field, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's coming from another planet. It means that we're etheric beings and we can take on whatever we want. And they can realize they can change into whatever they want. They can become as whatever they want. They can be an owl, a deer, or whatever. When Barbara Streisand,
people who have gone to these other planets, though. Dolly.
Okay, so
Cameron, they're using interdimensional technology to do those things. Okay, there is science.
Barbara Streisand's stepson had the thing with the owl. He phones me up one time and he says, my wife went in the bathroom. There was this owl. It was 5 feet tall. I said, it was 5 feet tall? And he said, yeah, I was in there. I said, was it a real owl? I said, yeah, it was a real owl. It was 5 feet tall. And the soul, they can appear as whatever they want. We can manifest. They understand how it works. They can manifest into whatever they want and be whatever they want. They can come into the physical world. And if they die, if they put in people here, and material and stuff, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they came from another planet. That's the whole thing. And when you break it down, it all falls apart, especially the 1896 beings. They're from, or the ship that crashes. So the ship crashes. If you read the article, go back to the Aurora article from 1897 or whatever it was, and you read it, the thing was moving between 8 and 10 miles an hour when you hit the windmill. And you go, it's what they call the facts, that don't fit. It's like you go, that doesn't make any sense. Like it went 8 miles an hour and the whole UFO crashed and it all fell apart and the alien died. Or the Roswell thing. They said it was so magnificent that you couldn't bend it with a sledgehammer. And the thing hits the ground and it shatters like a wine glass dropped from the top of the Empire State Building. There's all these
not all
weird
reporting
things.
is exact or true. I mean, there's a lot of made up stuff. I mean, there's a lot.
No, I don't know. You can't blame, because then you end in the same boat. You're making up your story. You can't. Everybody's telling the truth as far as I'm concerned. They're describing reality.
Well, I'll tell you how I can say that. I can tell you how I can say that. Unless you hear it from the horse's mouth, you have to consider that the story has been altered. That's how I can say that. My mouth is coming directly from me. Nobody else is talking about my story but me. I'm the only one with my own evidence, and I present it forthwith. If you repeat me, you better repeat me exactly, and I better be available to back it up. That's how that works.
Sure.
So if you got a story from 1896, trust me, that story has been altered. It has been changed because
it's the original article. It's the original.
People mess up. People are not perfect.
Zeppelins were invented around that same exact time. It could very well have been Zeppelins.
Yeah, but that's just we're trying to explain away things that don't make any sense to the.
One thing I can tell you about that story that I know, if it's ET,
let me give you a story that I know that I heard firsthand. John Ramirez, the high-level CIA guy, he said when he goes to his craft, he goes to a planet. He said there was no craft. I don't use a craft. There's no craft. And that's John Ramirez. That's like he's like a GS-16. He's like a high-level CIA guy.
I'm worried if he's MK'd or not. That would worry me. If I hear that, knowing what I know, I will tell you point blank that I would strictly scrutinize it. Right. Because if he's saying that, he's not giving you the truth. And that makes me think he's government MK'd. Okay? And they do that. They mine lab as many people as they can. I wouldn't worry about that.
36 people told basically the same story of the fact that they can go from here to the other side of the galaxy instantaneously.
If they're all military, I would worry about it. Okay, I would absolutely worry.
You guys, we have 10 minutes. I always promise people in chat we'll answer some of their questions. So if we could do that real quick before it closes up the show. So let me just go through some of these questions here. There's not a whole lot of them because people, I think, are just trying to keep up with you, Cameron. Okay. This one's from Moonfire. Question for Cameron. Do Canadian contactees in the military get discharged for their experiences and forced into psych wards? Or is that an American problem? Certainly that's happened.
The Canadian military, we don't care about the military in Canada. That's total non. My nephew's in the Air Force. My father was in the Air Force. No, that's a different world. The United States is a different world than Canada. Let me tell you, there's no military. There's not even UFO stuff. There's no UFO groups. There's nothing. It's like we're interested in hockey. We don't care. We don't really realize we got a constitution. Nobody cares. It's not like the United States. Completely different world.
All right. You're very polite too. Not like him. Okay. Fun Talks TV is just offering his webmaster services.
Too late. The site's been gone for 7 or 8 years. In fact, I took all my files and I destroyed all my files. They're all online now. And whoever may have made a deal with me, because I don't keep any secrets, may want to duck because I just scanned all my documents from 50 years and they're now all on the internet.
All right. This is from Channel Warhorse. I'm not exactly sure what he's asking here. How does one give Canada unification of physics?
What do you mean by that?
I'm not exactly sure.
No, I don't know. All
right. Then moving along, you can elucidate Channel Warhorse. We probably won't have time because we're really pushing it right now. Fun Talks TV. Grant, can you tell us how did you experience this download you had? Was there any sensation to it?
I've had a lot. The first one, I was watching Colin Andrews give a lecture on crop circles. I couldn't have cared less about crop circles. I wrote a book called Contact Modalities, which talks about how to get in the field. Everything is in the field. All the answers are there. Everything is there. It's the ability to shut down the left brain and get in the field and I was daydreaming, and that's one of the modalities. I was not paying attention, and suddenly it all just popped in my head. I had one in 2016 or 2017. Walking down the street, I got 24 things. It said, "You think it's this? It's this. You think it's this? It's this." I know when I'm getting downloaded. I mean, there's a feeling that comes with it, almost like you say, "You remember that guy we used to hang around with, Preston? What was that guy's name?" And you say, "Oh, it was John." "Oh yeah, John." It's that idea. It's like, I know it comes with absolute certainty. I got a long one, and I can go in the field, and I know when to pull the pen out and to start to write as fast as I can. I know when I'm in the field.
All right.
I've had a lot of downloads.
All right, let's see if we got anything else here. Does this story have an ending? How is this all going to roll out, do you think, in the future?
That's why I say I'm different from the Judeo-Christian that we're going to all go, Jesus is going to come, we're all going to shut her down here and go to heaven. No, it just gets, there is, everything is made out of consciousness. There is only consciousness, and God did not create the heaven and the earth. God created the sparks of the divine. We are all one. We are all God. We are creating the universe out of consciousness. If you go to Michael Newton, and that's a very important books to read, Michael Newton talks about the people between lives who are making animals, who are making rocks, who are making plants and stuff like that. We are creating the universe. We are creating it out of consciousness, and it's going to continue to get more complex and more complex, because that's what it's all about. It's about God experiencing itself through other people's experiences. There is no end. It just gets more complex and more complex. Almost like David Bohm said, when you get to the bottom of the quantum physics thing, don't worry. There's just another level below that.
Okay, going back to the 1896 thing, CT Guitar Guy 85 is asking, are the intelligences, quote, presenting themselves as a technology that locals would understand?
Yeah.
Or are the locals explaining what they could see in their own terms? So is the belief system playing a role, or
Yeah, Kid Green, who runs the experiencer thing for the government, this whole thing where they're doing the DNA and the brain scans and all this kind of stuff, said, whatever being you see is whatever your belief system is. And that's what I bring up about Mission Rama. I've written 2 books on the Mission Rama thing about the opening the portals. And I talked to the people who are in the portals, and they have the most dramatic stories. They're one from 2020, the most dramatic story I've ever heard in ufology. They have unbelievable. And I say, I defy you to find Mission Rama. There's 25,000 around the world. They have all these encounters. I defy you to find one who has a gray or reptilian or a mantid. Theirs are all these biblical. They got the hair. They all look like Michael Phelps, the swimmer, and it's all very religious. And they live under Mount Shasta and all this sort of stuff. And we are part of the thing. We want to separate it. There's us and there's them. The Tao that can be named is not the Tao. Everything is a verb. There are no nouns. In science, we turn it to nouns, inanimate nouns. It's all a verb. It's all one thing, and it's all growing, and we're part of it. And it's all made out of consciousness. There is basically no physical world. It's a vibration. There's only one note being played through the entire universe. We're at a very low vibration in the sea. We don't know what's going on from time to time. Someone will float up higher into the water in the sea and see things and go back into the darkness and say, "Hey, I saw it." The closer you get to the light, the more you can see. And that's all it is. Everything else is on a different vibration. It's all one thing. It's all vibration. It's all consciousness. And
I don't know. I think there's a physical world. I mean, we're in it.
It's a vibrating physical world, but even if you break down the atoms to the smallest thing, there are no particles.
We are all made of light. Every proton in your body is.
It's all made of fields. When you break
the only
down
reason that you perceive as a solid object is because we're gravity heavier, and we're all compacted together.
But this physical world does follow certain laws.
Well, yes, it does, but there are 12 dimensions, and in each dimension that changes. What we perceive here is not what is in the 4th dimension, or the 5th, or the 6th, or the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. We're here to learn what we can learn here, and then we go up into the next dimension, and the next, and the next, and the next. And it's all consciousness. He's exactly right. But you have to learn the lessons here. That's why you're in this dimension, to learn all that is learnable here before you proceed up. And that's the most important thing you have to consider. And that means that you have to think about everything. You have to employ your knowledge, your capability of understanding. You can't just be told something. That's belief, and it's bullshit, because you won't know the truth either way. I'm sorry, I just did. You have to experience something and gain the knowledge for yourself. Then you employ it, and then you have wisdom. That's how it's supposed to happen here, period. So we see things as solid objects. We bleed. We do all kinds of horrible, terrible things. But we're still we're only operating with this physicality. But outside of this physicality or indwelling it is our consciousness. And it is capable of anything. And that's what we have to wake up to.
Well, you guys, we're going to have to close it up.
Leaving this, if we want to. That's how much powerful it is. Okay.
We're on our last few minutes, and I want to give Grant you a chance to just, and everyone here, to get a little look-see at your books. So Beyond Managing Magic is about disclosure, basically.
Yeah, it's the whole Tom DeLonge story, what actually happened with Tom DeLonge and all that. And then there's a book that's been finished after that, which talks about the Congress and how all that stuff worked. That's waste. Don't read those books; it's a waste of time. This is a good one. The music thing, the whole idea. Where does music come from? The vibration idea, and the fact that most musicians are right-brained. They can't read and write music, and it's like it's the male versus the female brain. That's what it is. We're moving from the male brain, the fighting portals of Mount Shasta. I've spent a lot of time on portals. Portals are the real deal. It's not, this is, if they're moving around, they're moving through portals. This is moving from one point in space to another. And I got Ron Pandolfi on camera, actually talking about going into the next world and coming back again. This is the guy that may actually have briefed the president of the United States. Contact modalities is extremely important. There's 70 some contact modalities on how do you shut down the left brain and get in the field, and all the materials in the field. And that's what musicians and Nobel Prizes, I have 13 Nobel Prizes and stuff. That's where they get it. They go in the field, they get the material. Everybody thinks it's smart people. Smart people really don't create much. Creation is done through inspiration. Managing magic was this the first idea that I say the government is not, they know they're not dealing with UFOs, they're dealing with magic. Ron Pandolfi defined it. He said, we have a phenomenology problem. It's all one thing. You got to quit parsing all the paranormal and the UFO. It's all one thing.
I don't know.
Yep.
All right. Let's see, what else do we have here? Weird paranormal tales of Apple.
That's this whole idea that people get this idea that the crafts are crashing and their pieces are falling off the craft. They come 1,000 light years and the pieces start falling off. And I'm going, come on, they're dropping the stuff. Come on, hello, wake up. It's like the Clinton thing. The Clintons were obsessed with UFOs. So I got the Rockefeller documents. So I just wrote up the stuff that was on my website. This is the Canadian thing. The Canadians had the same thing where they were working on this and they were doing channeling, and they knew the connection to the consciousness. It's there's this big consciousness connection to all this sort of stuff. And so I just detail what the Canadians knew, and they were miles ahead of the Americans in the early 1950s.
You got a lot of books, Grant. Here's just five or six more here. Triangles, aliens, and messages.
Well, I just go to all these people. It's just amazing how many people have the triangles, and every triangle is different. And it's like what Lukatsky said, every UFO sighting is different. And in here, you'll see every single triangle sighting is different. They have different lighting formations on them. And this is the big one, the UFO sky pilots, where I get the people, and then you get people who are flying the craft, and this idea that there's somebody standing behind them. U.S. Air Force colonel out of Los Angeles said, this being is standing behind me, and he's telling me what to do. And I don't know if it's a being or a human or whatever. And then Jim Semivan says, the beings were in the room, and he said, and there was this being behind me, and it had this guardian type thing. And I went, oh, that's Michael Newton. The being's on your left-hand side. It's your guardian angel standing behind you. This is not an alien. The ride is just a bunch of articles that I wrote on various weird paranormal stuff.
And breakthrough and all
the breakthrough. That's the first 15 of 27 sessions where I went in, and I went in as I said, I'm here to learn lessons. I'm not here to do anything else. And I used very high dose. So you'd have a breakthrough session, and I was shown all sorts of stuff. I was shown, I had at one point, I knew the answer to everything in the universe, and it all faded away. And I was told about my ego many times to shut her down. And Jimmy Carter, that was when Jimmy Carter was dying. We put out, Jimmy Carter did a lot. He just didn't put his fingerprints on anything. He had all sorts of people working to try to unravel the UFO situation. You just don't know it because it was his officials that were doing it for him.
Two more. We already covered this. Charlie Red Star.
Charlie Red Star, that's the first one.
A lot of books, Grant. And what's the next one?
I have two coming out called, it was going to be called the Super Bowl, but it's being called the Big Game. Someone told me I get sued. And it's basically, I take a look at all the paranormal phenomena, and I show you how this crosses over to this. And you have orbs in mediumship, you have orbs in UFOs, you have orbs here, orbs there, and all the stuff. It's all, I was going to call it crossovers, all these different thing. So a lot of weird stories about how all the paranormal phenomena is connected. Or Ray Hernandez, when he had the vision, when they pulled him out of his car and they said the wheel was spinning with all these different things, remote viewing, paranormal phenomena, UFOs and stuff. And they said, you got to quit parsing this stuff. It's all the same thing, and it's all connected with consciousness. And that's what the more I look, the more I move away from anything into this idea of how grand the universe is. And I actually think that they are feeding me material. They're actually giving me material to show the world how complex the world actually is. The deeper you dig into it, the more complex it gets. It doesn't get any simpler. We think it's going to get simpler. It actually gets more complex, as happens with anything else.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to have to close it up. It's been great, Grant. A lot of interesting ideas. Thanks so much for joining us. I want to thank you guys for the super chats. Namaste and Sukhoi and Raul Melendez. Very, very thankful, all you guys, for all you do to help our show continue. So thank you so much, all of you guys, for joining us. Dolly, you want to bring us out? We're running a minute or
A little
two.
bit over. All right. Thank you, Cameron, for coming on. We would love to have you back again as well, especially when your next book comes out. That's important. We are coming to you live from the beautiful city of New Orleans in Louisiana at the United Public Radio Network at 107.7 FM and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network at 105.3 FM. We are on Roku, Facebook, and YouTube. We are worldwide heard, and we love y'all, and we would love to see you come back next Monday night at 8 p.m. to say hi. Talk to you later, everybody. Love you. Yeah, let's see if I can do this right.